Welcome back to Boom and Bust, having our discussion with the opposition Shadow Minister for Innovation, Rick Perkins, MP for South Shore St. Margaret's in Nova Scotia. Rick, continuing our discussion on the budget, because it does impact on what you're concerned about, competitiveness, productivity, innovation, those kinds of things. Higher spending, we've talked a little bit about that. We can talk a bit more about it. And higher taxes. Tell us a little bit about how that impacts Canadians.
Yeah, well, anytime you take more money out of the pocket of Canadians and give it to government to try and do something with it, it doesn't get spent as effectively into the economy as an individual can. And in this case, they're raising taxes, in particular a $19 billion tax increase on what's called capital gains. So if you sell your small business, you've worked your whole life, 40, 50 years, never taken a holiday, took all the risk. The government has now increased the tax rate on that capital gain by almost 40%. So it's called the inclusion rate. They're moving it from 50% to 66%. That's a massive tax grab. So just when we should be investing, we have an issue that we're not investing enough in our businesses in Canada to grow our businesses, the government solution is actually to take more money out of those businesses and take it to the federal government. And that's going to hurt our productivity even further. And as we know, all of these programs they've been creating to spend this money haven't actually produced anything. They're making our productivity worse. And, they've introduced a whole bunch of new programs in the industry area. They say we're world leading in artificial intelligence. We're not. And they're spending in what I would call the industry area between some of the green initiatives and the investment column, but really they're just expenditures in the area of artificial intelligence. We're talking about $7 billion in this budget, just this budget alone. And that's to create more agencies. They're going to create more programs, right, more agencies, like the Canada Growth Fund, which they announced 3 years ago, which has taken 3 years to start going. They continue to do all of these things because they can't resist in a budget to create new agencies. That they're going to do more consultation on things like the SHRED tax credit. They've already been consulting. It's now been in, I think, Chrystia Freeland's mandate letter since 2019, and they just finished their first consultation. They said, well, we got to consult some more on it. And so that's going to go into some ether area. Meanwhile, we keep falling further and further behind. Just to give you some idea, Tony, you'll remember this because 2014, 2015 was the last year of the Conservative government under Stephen Harper. The entire revenue in that budget, the entire taxes everyone paid, was $282 billion, a big amount of money.
All right.
At the end of this 5-year cycle, that number is going to be 108% higher at I think it's $586 billion.
Right.
So, but they're spending more than that. The spending is actually going to be 100, because that last year, the Harper government actually produced a $1.9 billion surplus.
I remember.
This produces a $40 billion deficit yet again. Remember, the budget balance itself, and we'll just have these small little budgets deficits between 2015 and 2019 and be back to balance in 2019. Well, of course, none of that has happened. They've blown the doors off of everyone, and every time they set their fiscal guardrail, they ignore their fiscal guardrail. They drive off the road in every budget, or right through that guardrail. And,
right.
And the result is that the fastest growing sector of our economy is the government.
Yeah.
That's not the way to a productive economy.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I was going to mention, obviously being a former president of the Treasury Board, I know this, but the size of the federal public service since I was Treasury Board president has grown by 100,000 people, which is more than the private sector. And again, this is, are we getting better service from our government as a result of this? The answer, you tell us the answer to that one, Rick.
Well, our taxes are twice as much and the spending's twice as much, but is the federal government service twice? Has our healthcare improved by double? Have our passport processing improved by twice as much? Has our immigration system improved by twice as much? Of course, none of that's happened. It's gotten worse in every single area. And it's 102,000, Tony.
Okay.
And the Minister of Finance bragged in her budget that through retirements, she was going to reduce the public service by 5,000 people over the next 5 years. 5,000 out of 102,000 that they've added.
Yeah.
And everyone should feel grateful. It's like when she was proud when she announced that they have just done the last weld on the TMX pipeline.
Right.
Like, that was the most galling thing in the budget, right? Here it is. They create the situation in
Rick,
Canada where nobody wants to invest.
We're going to have to take a break. Hold that thought. I know you're in the midst of the high dudgeon there, but we'll be right back with you after these messages.